In San Francisco, a six-figure salary does not buy security. It buys permission to stay. This is the story of a software engineer earning $175,000 a year, who is losing money every month. He didn't overspend, he didn't fail, he didn't choose the wrong career. He chose the wrong city. The fog in San Francisco is a physical presence. It is thick, cold, and indifferent. It rolls over the Twin Peaks and settles into the Mission District, muting the colors of the Victorian houses and dampening the sounds of the street. For decades, this fog has served as the backdrop for a specific kind of American mythology. It is the atmosphere of the frontier. Daniel sat in his kitchen, thousands of miles away, when the email arrived. He was 34 years old, a competent engineer with a decade of experience in systems architecture. He was not a superstar developer. He didn't have 1 million followers on GitHub, and he hadn't founded a startup that failed upward. He was simply a man who was very good at his job, reliable, cautious, and thorough. The offer was for a mid to senior level position at a medium-sized firm in South of Market, San Francisco. The number at the bottom of the PDF was $175,000. Daniel looked at the figure for a long time. For a man who had spent the last few years working on a specialized visa, this felt like the ultimate arrival. At $175,000, he calculated that he would be earning more than his father had earned in 10 years combined. It was a number that commanded respect. It was a number that felt like a shield. He and his wife Sarah celebrated quietly. They looked at photos of the Bay Area, the Golden Gate Bridge, the redwood forests of Marin County, the clean lines of modern office buildings. They had a 3-year-old son, Leo. They imagined him growing up in a place defined by innovation and intellectual curiosity. Daniel was not a man of excess. He did not dream of Ferraris or penthouses. His goals were modest: a safe neighborhood, a good preschool for Leo, and the ability to save enough to eventually buy a home and secure his family's future. He had heard that San Francisco was expensive, but he reasoned that with $175,000, expensive would merely be a nuisance, not a threat. He signed the contract. He felt a profound sense of relief. He believed he had done everything right. He had studied the right subject, worked in the right industry, and now he had secured the right salary. The move was not a gamble. It was a transition to the next level of success. Reality does not arrive in San Francisco with a bang. It arrives with the first month's bank statement. Daniel sat in their new apartment, a modest, slightly cramped 2-bedroom unit in a building from the 1970s, and opened his laptop. He created a spreadsheet. He titled it San Francisco, Month 1. While his gross salary was $175,000, that was not the money that entered his bank account. After federal income tax, the aggressive California state tax, Social Security, Medicare, and the mandatory payroll taxes, his monthly take-home pay was approximately $14,583 gross. But then came the deductions. Health insurance for a family of 3, even with a corporate subsidy, was $600 a month. He contributed 5% to his 401k. Not out of greed, but because he was 34 and had a family to protect. His monthly net income, the actual cash available to pay for his life in the city, was $9,200. Daniel looked at the number. It was still a large number, but then he began to enter the fixed costs. The rent for their modest 2-bedroom apartment was $4,600. It was not a luxury building. It did not have a gym, a doorman, or a view of the bay. It was simply a functional space in a neighborhood that was considered safe for a toddler. Monthly net income, $9,200. Housing rent, negative $4,600. With one line item, 50% of his net income was gone. Then came the second rent: childcare. Sarah wanted to work, but as an immigrant on a recent green card, she was still navigating the local job market. To give her the time to interview and to give Leo the socialization he needed, they enrolled him in a full-time daycare. The cost was $2,600 a month. This was not the most expensive boutique school in the city. It was a standard, reputable facility. Remaining balance, $4,600. Childcare, negative $2,600. Daniel stared at the spreadsheet. He had $2,000 left. He had not yet paid for a single bag of groceries. He had not paid for electricity, his car, his phone, or the health insurance deductibles. He continued to type. Health costs out of pocket / deductibles, negative $500. Transportation Honda car payment, insurance, fuel, negative $800. Groceries at a standard Safeway, negative $900. Utilities, electricity, internet, water, phone, negative $200. Total remaining, negative $400. Daniel leaned back in his chair. He checked the math again. Perhaps he had made a mistake in the tax calculation. He checked his pay stub. The numbers were correct. On a salary of $175,000 a year, Daniel was losing $400 a month. He was not living a life of luxury. He was not eating at Michelin-starred restaurants. He was driving a 6-year-old Honda and buying generic brand cereal. He was doing everything right, and yet the math of the city was rejecting him. This is where the numbers stop being abstract. This is where the math begins to shape daily life. In San Francisco, housing is not a marketplace. It is a structural trap. When Daniel began searching for an apartment, the shock was not just the price, but the absence of choice. A monthly rent of $4,600 would buy a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs of Raleigh or Columbus. In San Francisco, it bought a modest 2-bedroom unit in a building from the 1970s, with single-pane windows and a heater that struggled at night. This was not a luxury decision. It was a defensive one. Daniel was not paying for space. He was paying for safety. He was paying for proximity. He was paying to live in a neighborhood where he felt comfortable walking his son to the park. That choice came with a premium. Because housing is scarce, landlords do not compete. Daniel found himself in bidding wars for rental units that smelled faintly of dampness. He submitted credit reports, references, and deposits that resembled down payments elsewhere. He considered moving farther out, to the East Bay or deep into the peninsula. But the savings were marginal. The trade-off was time. A 2-hour daily commute was not free. It was 2 hours stolen from his family, plus higher transportation costs. Housing in San Francisco is priced for the top 5% of earners. For everyone else, it delivers a quiet message. You are welcome to work here. You are not welcome to build a life. Daniel realized he was not paying for an apartment. He was paying for a zip code. And that zip code consumed half of his labor every month. Housing took half of Daniel's income. Childcare would take what was left. If housing is the trap, childcare is the wall. The monthly cost of daycare, $2,600, never stopped feeling unreal. This was not a boutique program or a luxury service. It was a standard, licensed facility operating at market rate. The logic was unavoidable. The daycare had rent to pay. Staff needed wages high enough to survive in the city. Insurance costs were non-negotiable. Daniel searched for alternatives. Home-based daycares existed, slightly cheaper, but the waitlists stretched beyond a year. Safety had a price, and the price was fixed. This cost reshaped their family entirely. Sarah felt pressure to work, not to advance, but to offset the daycare bill. Yet even if she earned $60,000 a year, taxes and commuting costs would reduce her contribution to less than $1,000 a month. They were trapped in a paradox. 2 incomes were necessary, but the cost of enabling 2 incomes erased one of them. San Francisco does not fail people loudly. It fails them quietly, one monthly expense at a time. Each morning, when Daniel dropped Leo off, he was not just leaving his child. He was surrendering nearly 2 weeks of his labor. Daycare became the physical symbol of their stagnation. At this point, the obvious question emerges: why not earn more? A few months into the job, Daniel's manager praised his performance. A raise was discussed. $10,000. In most cities, a raise like that changes a life. In San Francisco, it barely changes the spreadsheet. It is a new car, a series of vacations, or a significant increase in a retirement fund. Daniel did the math. A $10,000 increase in gross salary would move his annual income to $185,000. But he was already in a high tax bracket. After the federal government took its 24% and California took its 9.3%, and the various other deductions were applied, that $10,000 raise would translate to roughly $450 a month in actual take-home pay. $450. It would take Daniel from a monthly deficit of $400 to a surplus of $50. This is the illusion of earning more in a high-cost, high-tax geography. The marginal gains are so small that they are often swallowed by a slight increase in the cost of groceries or a minor rise in health insurance premiums. Daniel realized that to actually feel a change in his quality of life, to move from surviving to thriving, he wouldn't need a $10,000 raise. He would need a $100,000 raise. He would need to be a FANG superstar or a high-level executive. The city is designed to reward the exceptional, but it merely harvests the competent. Daniel was competent. He was the engine that kept the company running. But the city was calibrated to extract exactly as much as he earned. He began to see the promotions and raises of his colleagues not as steps upward, but as small adjustments to keep them from drowning. They were treading water, and the city was slowly raising the level of the pool. No matter how fast he swam, the ceiling remained just inches above his head. The stress of living in the wrong city is not acute. It is not the stress of a car crash or a sudden illness. It is a low-level, ambient hum that never stops. Daniel felt it every time he walked through the supermarket. He found himself comparing the price of almond milk at two different stores. He felt a pang of anxiety when Leo needed new shoes. A $60 purchase for a growing child should not be a cause for concern for a man earning $175,000. Yet in Daniel's world, it was 15% of his remaining monthly cash flow. There was also the fear of the event. In San Francisco, you were always one event away from insolvency. If Daniel were laid off, his visa status would be at risk. He would have 60 days to find a new job or leave the country. But with no savings, he wouldn't even have the capital to move his family back home. The California smile is the expression people wear when they are talking about their high-paying tech jobs while mentally calculating if they can afford to get their car's brakes fixed this month. It is a city of people who look like they are winning, but who feel like they are losing. Daniel stopped looking at his bank app. The numbers didn't move. No matter how many hours of overtime he put in, no matter how many projects he completed, the balance at the end of the month was always the same, a few $100s. He felt a sense of profound stuckness. He was 34 years old, at the height of his professional powers, and he was not moving forward. He was not building equity. He was not creating a legacy for Leo. He was simply a conduit for cash. Money flowed into his account from a tech giant, and it flowed out to his landlord, the daycare center, and the state of California. He was a highly paid middleman in his own life. One evening, Daniel called an old classmate from university. His friend Vikram had taken a job in Columbus, Ohio. Vikram was also a software engineer. His salary was $135,000, $40,000 less than Daniel's. Daniel asked him about his life, expecting to hear about the sacrifices Vikram had made by choosing a Tier 3 city. "It's good," Vikram said. "We just bought a house. It's 4 bedrooms, about 2,500 square feet. The mortgage is $2,400 a month." Daniel felt a sharp pain in his chest. $2,400 for a house. He was paying $4,600 for a 2-bedroom apartment. "And daycare?" Daniel asked. "We found a great place nearby," Vikram said. $1,100 a month. Daniel did the math in his head. In Columbus, Vikram's net income was lower, maybe $7,500 a month. But his housing and childcare combined were only $3,500. He was left with $4,000 a month for groceries, cars, and savings. Daniel, earning $40,000 more in gross salary, was left with $2,000 for those same things. The comparison was stark. Vikram was less successful by every metric used in the tech industry. He worked for a retail company, not a high-growth tech firm. He lived in a city that no one in San Francisco ever talked about. But Vikram was wealthy. Daniel was merely high income. Vikram was building a life. Daniel was maintaining a lifestyle. The realization was that the prestige of the San Francisco salary was a lie. It was a nominal figure that failed to account for the geography of the expense. In Austin, Texas, or Raleigh, North Carolina, Daniel would be a pillar of the community. In San Francisco, he was just another renter, struggling to stay ahead of the next inflation spike. The moment of clarity came on a Saturday morning in Golden Gate Park. Daniel was watching Leo play on the swings. It was a beautiful day, the kind of day that the travel brochures use to justify the cost of the city. The air was crisp, the trees were lush, and the distant sound of the Pacific Ocean was a reminder of the area's natural beauty. But Daniel wasn't looking at the trees. He was looking at Leo's shoes. They were worn at the toes. He realized that he had been in San Francisco for 2 years. And though he checked his savings account on his phone, the balance was $4,200. After 2 years of senior-level engineering work, after 2 years of success, he had exactly enough money to pay for 1 month of rent. If he lost his job tomorrow, his family would be on the street in 30 days. He looked around at the other parents in the park. They were dressed in Patagonia vests and expensive sneakers. They looked successful. But Daniel now knew the secret. He knew that most of them were probably just like him. They were all participating in a mass delusion that income equals quality of life. He realized that he had not made a mistake in his career. He was a good engineer. He had worked hard. He had been cautious. He had simply chosen the wrong city. He had moved to a place that was optimized for the top 1% and the bottom 10%, but which viewed the middle 80%, even the high-income middle, as a resource to be mined. He was the fuel for the city's fire. He was burned to keep the lights on in the skyscrapers of the financial district. There is no climactic ending to Daniel's story. He did not quit his job in a fit of rage. He did not pack his bags that afternoon. The tragedy of the wrong city is that it makes it very difficult to leave. When you have no savings, the cost of moving, the first and last month's rent in a new city, the moving trucks, the gap in paychecks, feels like an insurmountable mountain. Daniel is still in San Francisco. He still works for the same firm. He still earns $175,000. But the fog looks different to him now. It no longer looks like the frontier. It looks like a shroud. We are taught to believe that success is a linear path, that if you work hard and earn a high salary, stability will naturally follow. We are taught that our value is determined by the number on our paycheck. But Daniel's life raises a question that our modern economy is not prepared to answer. What does success mean when you can earn a top-tier salary and still have no path to progress? What is the value of a 6-figure income if it cannot buy the basic components of a stable life? A home, a secure future for your child, and the absence of ambient fear. In the United States, we are told that we can be anything. We are told that the market will reward talent. But as Daniel watches the fog roll in over the park, he knows the truth. The market rewards geography. And if you choose the wrong city, no amount of talent can save you. The swings creak in the wind. Leo laughs. Daniel checks his watch. It is time to go home to the 2-bedroom apartment that costs half his life. Next month, the rent will likely go up.